The introductory passage reveals that 16 years after Marcus Aurelius's death, Rome is under the control of corrupt twin emperors, Geta, Joseph Quinn, and Caracalla, Fred Heckinger. His vision for Rome has crumbled, and the city is on the verge of collapse. In Numidia, 200 AD, a young man named Lucius Verus Aurelius, Paul Mescal, going by the name Hanno, works the land with his wife, Arishat, Yuval Gonen. They see smoke and flames rising from the nearby gates, signaling the start of a battle. They arm themselves and fight alongside fellow warriors against General Cassius, Pedro Pascal, and his Roman forces. While Lucius and Arishat put up a valiant struggle, Cassius notices Arishat using her bow and orders his men to kill her. She is struck fatally by an arrow and falls into the ocean, just as Lucius is also knocked into the water. As he hovers between life and death, he witnesses Arishat being guided to the afterlife by the ferryman, while he is drawn back to consciousness. Lucius is captured and enslaved with the surviving soldiers and citizens as the city succumbs to invasion. Cassius returns to Ostia, where he is rewarded by Geta and Caracalla. Geta reveals their ambitions to conquer Persia and India next, while Cassius believes their focus should be on the citizens of Rome. Geta refuses to give Cassius time off to spend with his wife and collaborates with Caracalla to arrange gladiator games in the Colosseum. Lucius and the other enslaved individuals are taken to Antium, where a stablemaster named Maximus, Denzel Washington, oversees an arena. The slaves are compelled to fight against wild baboons. Jubartha, Peter Mensa, a Numidian chieftain who was captured alongside Lucius, chooses to face death in the arena and allows a baboon to attack his throat. Lucius engages in combat with one of the baboons, biting its arm before ultimately strangling it to death with his shackles. Macrinas quickly notices Lucius's skill and later matches him in hand-to-hand combat against the gladiator trainer Vigo, Leor Raz, further impressing Macrinas with his prowess. Observing the rage that fuels Lucius, Macrinas learns of Lucius's desire for vengeance against Cassius and promises that he can achieve this if he fights fiercely in Rome. Meanwhile, Cassius returns to his wife, the remarried Lucilla, Connie Nielsen, expressing his distaste for the number of soldiers being sacrificed to fulfill the twin emperor's ambitions. Together, they plot an insurrection with allies like Gracchus, Derek Jacobi. Macrinas takes Lucius to a lavish party hosted by Senator Thrax, Tim McInerney. There, before the emperors and other Senate members, Lucius is forced to fight another combatant for their amusement. Although he tries to spare his opponent, he is compelled to fight and ultimately ends up impaling him. Geta approaches Lucius and asks a question, but Lucius responds by quoting Virgil, "The gates of hell are open night and day. Smooth the descent and easy the way, but to return and view the cheerful skies, in this the task and mighty labor lies." The gladiatorial games begin as Lucius and his fellow gladiators enter the Colosseum. Lucius runs the dirt of the arena through his hands, reminiscent of the late warrior Maximus, catching Lucilla's attention as she recognizes him. He and the other gladiators are matched against the undefeated champion Glycio, Chris Halloways, who ruthlessly dispatches the other fighters while riding his pet rhino before facing Lucius. They engage in a brutal battle, and after Lucius is knocked down, Geta offers Glycio the chance to spare him. Rejecting this opportunity, Lucius presses on and ultimately impales Glycio, receiving the thumbs-down signal to behead him. After the fight, Lucilla retreats to her private chambers, recalling the quote from Virgil and the painful memory of sending Lucius into exile as a boy for his own safety. Heartbroken, she realizes that her son has returned, prompting Macrinas to start piecing together the truth. Lucius forms a friendship with Ravi, Alexander Karim, the gladiator doctor, who tends to his injuries. Later, Gracchus brings Lucilla to meet Lucius so she can reveal his true heritage, that he is the son of Maximus. However, Lucius is unresponsive to this revelation and orders Lucilla to leave his cell in anger, blaming her for sending him away and for Cassius's role in Arishat's death. Lucilla then approaches Cassius, seeking help for Lucius. In his training, Lucius joins the other gladiators in a naval battle, where he leads them to victory by targeting the opposing ship's oars and then ramming into them directly. He attempts to shoot Acacius with his crossbow, but the bolt instead narrowly misses and flies between Geta and Caracalla, which they perceive as a personal affront. Macrinus visits Threyx's residence to evict him for a substantial debt. In return for not being thrown out, Threyx divulges information about the plot to overthrow the emperors, as he had previously been involved. Macrinus gathers this intel and still insists Threyx leave. Subsequently, Acacius and Lucilla are brought before Geta and Caracalla to confront their treachery, with Geta declaring they will be forgotten before being imprisoned. Macrinus persuades Geta to sentence Acacius to participate in the games as punishment. As Lucius grows closer to Ravi, he learns that Ravi was once a slave who earned his freedom by fighting in the games. Ravi introduces Lucius to a shrine dedicated to gladiators, where he shows him a wall displaying the names of fallen fighters, including Maximus's name crossed out. However, Maximus's armor and sword are still kept in a private display, along with his words, "What we do in this life echoes in eternity." Acacius is compelled to fight against the soldiers of the Praetorian Guard, defeating them all before facing Lucius. The two engage in battle until Lucius gains the upper hand and has Acacius at his mercy. However, Lucius chooses not to execute Acacius after he professes his love for his mother and declares he would have given his life for his father. In response, Geta orders the Praetorian Guard to execute Acacius by launching a barrage of arrows at him. Lucius condemns their actions, declaring to the spectators that if this is how Rome treats its heroes, they should brace for even worse treatment. As Lucius departs, the crowd chants his name, or rather, Hanno. Macrinus visits Lucius in his cell to question his choice to spare Acacius. Lucius expresses his belief in a just way to lead Rome, but Macrinus disagrees with this idealism. Later, Macrinus approaches the emperors just as unrest begins to brew in the streets. After Geta insults Caracalla over their differing methods of addressing the situation, Macrinus takes Caracalla aside. He knows that Caracalla feels compelled to share everything with Geta, leaving nothing for himself. Macrinus persuades Caracalla to confront his brother with a dagger. Geta attempts to dissuade Caracalla, but Macrinus guides Caracalla's hand, leading to Geta's throat being slashed before he is decapitated. Lucilla comes to visit Lucius again, bringing him a ring that belonged to his grandfather. They find reconciliation, and Lucius embraces his mother for the first time in many years. He then entrusts the ring to Ravi, asking him to deliver it to a general in Ostia in hopes that his army will come to their aid. Caracalla ascends to the throne, and his first decree is to appoint his pet monkey Dandas as consul, while elevating Macrinus to a higher position of power. After Caracalla exits, Macrinus presents Geta's severed head to the horrified senators to illustrate the necessity of increasing his own power, forcing them to vote him to lead the Praetorian Guard. He then visits Lucilla's cell to discuss how her grandfather enslaved him and share his plans to end the imperial bloodline by claiming the title of emperor for himself. Macrinus has Caracalla arrange for Lucilla and the other conspirators to be placed in the Colosseum, with only Lucius to protect her. The strategy is for the crowd to riot if Lucilla is killed, which would create an opportunity to eliminate Caracalla and seize the throne. Upon learning he must defend his mother, Lucius breaks out of his cell, killing Vigo before the other slaves revolt. He then retrieves his father's armor and sword, rallying the men to reclaim their freedom. The gladiators confront the Praetorian soldiers in the arena, leading to a full-scale riot as spectators are struck by arrows and begin to fight back. Gracchus is killed in the chaos. Seizing the moment, Macrinus drives a slender bodkin into Caracalla's ear, killing him, and then shoots an arrow into Lucilla's chest just before Lucius can intervene. Macrinus then mounts a horse to join the Praetorian Guard in facing the approaching army at the gates. Lucius chases after Macrinus and corners him just as the two armies converge. Lucius charges at Macrinus on horseback, leading to their final confrontation. Although Macrinus nearly gains the advantage, Lucius recalls his mother's encouraging words, turning the tide in his favor. He severs Macrinus's left arm before delivering a fatal blow. Lucius then addresses both armies, urging them to stop the senseless fighting. They sheathe their swords and chant in agreement. That night, Lucius enters the arena alone. He kneels in the sand and speaks to Maximus as he mourns the loss of both his parents.